You are probably wrong about climate-related disasters, because they are going down in number. They are not more damaging today than in the past, and they kill 98% less people than a century ago. For this video, I went through official data from the World Health Organization, the World Meteorological Organization, and the International Panel on Climate Change to get to the truth of climate-related disasters. And I can tell you, this will surprise you. On the 1st of September 2021, the business magazine Forbes ran this headline: "Weather-related disasters skyrocketed fivefold over past 50 years, says UN Weather Agency." It is one example of many. Just listen to a speech from the UN General Secretary Antonio Guterres.
We are on a highway to climate hell with our foot still on the accelerator.
Accordingly, climate anxiety has become a word. One study in the US found high levels of fear among young adults about their children running into a climate apocalypse. But what if I told you this fear is not supported by the data? The most trusted source of information on climate-related disasters comes from the Center for Research on the Epidemiology of Disasters, or in short, CRED. This is a research unit from the University of Louvain, located in Brussels. The CRED works together with the World Health Organization, collecting a database on natural disasters around the world. It includes everything from storms to earthquakes, floods, droughts, and so on. Their database spans back until 1900. Now, if we look at these numbers, we could get good reasons for climate anxiety. From a handful of disasters at the beginning of the last century to hundreds of incidents today. You might think we have already reached the climate hell that Antonio Guterres anticipated, but not so quick. In their 27th annual report, the CRED writes, justifying the upward trend in hydro-meteorological disaster occurrence and impacts essentially through climate change would be misleading. They say that climate change is probably a factor, but not the major one. So why do we now have so many more natural disasters? The truth is, we don't. They just get reported more. Nowadays, almost everybody around the globe has a smartphone with internet access. Everybody can take pictures of disasters and put them online in split seconds. I mean, just look at the number of earthquakes. At first glance, our Earth got a lot more shaky over the last century. That is of course not the case. We just got a lot more diligent when it comes to reporting seismic activities. In their database, the disaster researchers from the CRED explicitly warn the data from before the year 2000 should be taken with a huge grain of salt. So then let us zoom in on the data since 2000. Now the picture gets a lot less clear. If we add a trend line, we see that for the last 24 years, the number of natural disasters has even slightly gone down from an average of over 400 climate-related disasters globally at the beginning of the century to slightly less than 400 now. Yes, you've heard that correctly. In the 21st century, there have been fewer droughts, fewer wildfires, and fewer tornadoes over the years. To be fair, the number of tropical cyclones, storm surges, and heat waves has gone up. But overall, the numbers are going down. So when the data gets really robust, climate disasters go down. In an interview, the CRED director, Debarati Guha-Sapir, said that on their press conferences, they always stress that there is no increase in catastrophes. But it is hard to get that message across to the people. She said that among the climate movement, this piece of information creates a lot of distress. Or, to quote her directly,
nobody wants good news.
Some people even spam her inbox with hate mail for reporting those numbers. Why is that? Why do some people want bad news so bad? She suspects that it has to do with a fear of complacency. If everybody knew that climate disasters are getting fewer, nobody would care about global warming anymore. Everything is alright, isn't it? But is it maybe? Well, you might want to hold your horses on that one. Yes, there are fewer disasters. But the ones that do happen are more severe. Heat waves are stronger, floods are more intense. Accordingly, insurers and reinsurers report growing economic damages from climate-related disasters. A recent study from the World Meteorological Organization showed that in the 1970s, those disasters were responsible for losses of $180 billion. Already in the 90s, This number has skyrocketed to over 900 billion. And in the last decade, from 2010 to 2019, we have reached almost $1.5 trillion of climate damages. And yes, the historic numbers from the 1970s are adjusted for inflation. But there is one important aspect that these numbers do not reflect. The world economy has exploded since 1970. Just again, look at the numbers. Here you see the world GDP since the 1970s, adjusted for inflation in today's money. In 1970, the global economic output stood at $3 trillion. Now, in 2023, we have reached a global GDP of over $100 trillion. That is more than a 30-fold increase. That means that there are a lot more houses, more factories, and more infrastructure that can be destroyed by natural disasters. Researchers from the International Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, therefore write in their 2014 report that economic growth, including greater concentrations of people and wealth in periled areas and rising insurance penetration, is the most important driver of increasing losses. Adjusted for economic growth and inflation, climate disasters are not more destructive today. And buckle up, the best news is yet to come, because more important than any economic losses are the lost lives in climate disasters. But fortunately, they are decreasing drastically as well. Here you see the numbers from the University of Oxford that they put together in Our World in Data. They compiled a global per capita mortality from natural disasters. That means for every 100,000 people on Earth, how many of them die due to natural disasters? And compared to the 1920s, you are now about 98% less likely to die from natural disasters than 1 century ago. And other researchers have shown that this effect is even stronger in poorer countries. This means the poorer the country, the better progress it has made over the last years to protect its people from natural disasters. An example for this is Bangladesh. In 1970, a strong cyclone hit its coast. The country totally underestimated the storm and paid for this mistake with an extreme death toll. In the end, about 300,000 people died in this one storm. And now, fast forward to 2020, Bangladesh is hit by another cyclone. In fact, this one was one of the strongest storms in recorded history in this area. And the death toll this time? 26. More accurate weather forecasting, well-prepared evacuation programs, and a better infrastructure saved possibly hundreds of thousands of lives that could have been lost again in 2020. And developments like those can be seen everywhere around the world. Or take droughts. 1.5 centuries ago, they destroyed entire crops, starving millions of people to death. Nowadays, human agriculture is so much more productive and resilient that famines have become extremely rare. And that leads us back to Debarati Guhasapir and her fear of complacency. Climate change is real. And it makes extreme events even more extreme. Don't get me wrong, humanity needs to reduce the effects of climate change by reducing CO2 emissions. At the same time, we need to adapt to climate change. We have to constantly outrun the changing climate we create. But so far, we are doing pretty good. It would be wrong to assume that everything is fine, but it is similarly wrong to draw the picture of climate hell that just isn't there.